Oh, hello. Did you think it was someone else? Welcome to my trial recap. I'm just kidding. This is kind of gross. I thought that I would show up as, with a new hairstyle. What do you guys think? It's not hard to do. You just pull all of your hair as tight as you possibly can into a ponytail, and then it makes sure that the corners of your eyes, kind of pop. What do you think? I don't know. I think I'm gonna try this. I'm just kidding. I can't do it. I can't even look at myself like this. It's gross. That's it. I'm done. I can't do it. All right, guys. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the midlife revolution. This has been a pretty awful day. I do not own any red glasses, nor will I ever probably own any red glasses. They just don't go well with my coloring. So hopefully you got a little bit of a chuckle on what was a pretty tough day for a lot of us. I'm Megan Connor. Welcome to my full day trial recap, where we are talking about justice for Brandon Boudreaux, mentioning that person's name as little as possible, definitely not wanting to listen to anything that she has to say. And what we're going to focus on today is the fact that there was some really damning bombshell evidence that came in towards the end of the day with Detective Ray Hermosillo on the stand. And I for one, was so excited to hear what he was going to have to say, and he did not disappoint. And neither did Trina Kay. She was definitely bringing the fire today. Just evidence, piece by piece after, just so many wonderful things that she brought in today that are absolutely damning for Lori, in my opinion. Now, there was some speculation this morning. Some people had some comments about that they were worried about some of the points that Lori made during her cross-examination this morning. And while I think that she did make a couple of decent points, she had a couple of decent questions, I'm really not worried about it, to be honest with you. Hey, Mabel, thanks for being a member. And hey, McSpunky, it's always great to see you. Thank you. So a lot happened today. We have a lot to talk about. There was a lot of really important evidence that came in, and I think really just hit the final nail in the coffin for what I have started to refer to as hoary, shallow, can't spell. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. It's great for me to do this recap at the end of the day because I think that it really helps me to solidify the really important things that came into evidence today. Thank you, Christine, for the super sticker. I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. Northwest says, I know too much to be objective. Did the state show enough to tie Lori to a conspiracy? I know the feeling because I want to be biased to the fact that, I believe everything that came in today was pretty damning. And I recognize that I'm biased, and I, like a lot of people, I always get a little bit nervous that there's going to be somebody on the jury who doesn't see it the same way that I do, and who is going to actually, give Lori's questioning a little bit of credence and think that she has some good points. And I believe that there are a lot of holes that could have been poked in this case for sure, especially when it's conspiracy. I personally think conspiracy is harder to prove, but I could be wrong about that. But you have to really show that somebody had a material involvement. And I'm always a little bit nervous about that. I've been nervous about this since 2023 during Lori's first trial. A lot of the evidence was circumstantial. A lot of it you had to kind of connect dots and draw conclusions in order to find her guilty. So I think I've always been anxious about that in every single one of these cases. But I think that the way that Trina K laid this out during her opening statements was really unmistakable. She made 3 points, and I'm going to go back in my notes to go over these 3 points that she said. She was very dramatic with her opening statement. She set the scene of driving down the street, seeing the Jeep, seeing the gun come out of the Jeep, and bang, the gunshot. Caught us all off guard with that. And she really made us feel like we were there on the street. And she said her first mistake was buying the burner phone, loaning the Jeep to Alex Cox. You're going to see that he bought a burner phone with cash. And we saw that evidence today. This is how mind-blowingly stupid Alex was. He bought the burner phone at a Walmart in Idaho Falls instead of in Rexburg, where he lived. There was another Walmart in Rexburg that was the same size as the one in Idaho Falls. It's not like the Idaho Falls one had a bigger selection. He went all the way to Idaho Falls, purchased the burner phone with cash so that it couldn't be tied back to any of his credit card accounts or anything like that, and then kept the receipt in the vehicle in which he committed the crime. I'm so grateful for how dumb he was. But Lori's first mistake was loaning him the Jeep. The Jeep was registered to her. It was seen at her apartment. And then her second mistake was removing and storing the back seat and the tire at a storage unit that she rented one day prior to the shooting. When she had a perfectly good garage that was mostly empty, they could have put it in there. And we're going to talk about that, by the way. And then her third mistake was providing a fake alibi by calling her own phone from Alex's main cell phone number for 24 minutes. They were using the same cell tower. They were in the same exact apartment. And this call happened actually after the shooting happened, but it was in enough time proximity that it was a fake alibi. So she lined out those 3 things during her opening statements, and today she brought the evidence for those 3 things. That's how you do it. She tied it all together today with Detective Hermosillo, and tomorrow Nick Balance is going to testify. He is who some of you have called Detective Smooth Voice. He is the cast data expert who is going to testify about all of the GPS pings that were recorded, before, during, and after the commission of the alleged crime with the alleged Jeep today. So today we saw all the evidence that Lori did all the things that Trina said she did. Now, in my opinion, Lori has tried a little bit to poke some holes in the defense, but I'm really not worried about the questions that she asked today, because I really don't think that any of the questions she asked had any conclusion that would cause a juror to doubt the police work or the testimony of the witnesses. To be honest with you, she focused so much on the freaking color of the Jeep. And today, finally, a juror asked a question saying, is it common for people to mistake the color of the vehicle after a traumatic event like this? And the detective lined it out perfectly. So if I'm a juror on this case, I've got a lot of questions because, first of all, there's all this reference to 404 and 405 that I don't quite understand because I'm not in law. Not only that, they keep referencing this event that happened on July 19th of 2019, where they were executing search warrants and taking photographs. Then today, there was a whole reference to a completely different police department in Idaho that was executing search warrants at dates way after this shooting happened. So if I'm a juror, I've got a lot of questions that are unanswered so far. But what I know beyond a shadow of a doubt is that everything Trina K said in her opening statement has already been proved. by the prosecution. As far as the defense's opening statement is concerned, it was a bunch of basically, there's a conspiracy against me and it's your job to protect me. And they just have a theory and they're going to tell you a story. But she never said what her theory is. She never said what her story is. And I'm guessing she is not going to testify tomorrow. I'm guessing she's not going to put on any witnesses. She's not going to testify. I think she's going to rest tomorrow, basically saying the state hasn't proved their burden. I think that's what's going to happen. That's my prediction. Now, I'm happy to be proved wrong because all of us would love to see Lori put on some kind of a defense. At least we would know what was going on in her alleged mind. And I think a lot of us would love to see her testify, if only for the fact that she would give us some kind of a story that would help us understand where she is in her thinking. The closest thing we've ever gotten to Lori testifying in trial is the call that she did with her son, Colby, where Colby asked her what happened, and she blamed everything on Tylee. That's the only real testimony we've ever gotten from her. If we can count on anything, it is that Lori is going to blame everyone else for everything that she has done and never take responsibility for anything. She's also going to just ignore facts. She's going to ignore evidence, especially if they don't align with her narrative of what happened. And the other thing is that she's going to say, you weren't there. You didn't see it. You didn't see with your eyes. You didn't hear with your ears. And I thought for a second about writing a snarky closing statement based on everything that's happened in this trial. But frankly, I don't want to give her any more of my brain space. I am done. I am DONE, done. She can't understand normal thinking. There's an acronym for you. I learned that from somebody in chat yesterday, and I absolutely love it. Beverly, thank you so much for this super chat. I searched AI for how do narcissists react to people who scare them. Result, if the threat feels too overwhelming, they distance themselves and avoid direct confrontation to preserve their ego. That is Lori to a T regarding not questioning Detective Hermosillo. And I 100% agree with you. So let's get to what actually took place in court today. I did a little bit of this on my recap, on my lunchtime recap, midday recap. We talked about what happened before court. You know, people were a little concerned that she wasn't going to come to court, but there was a court order issued by the judge ordering actually MCSO to bring her to court under any means necessary, including force if they had to, which, man, I would love to see some video of that. That would be wonderful. However, we started off today with Detective Pillar on the stand, and unfortunately, Lori continuing her cross-examination of Detective Pillar. And honestly, it just exhausts me to even think about going through this again because for how painful it was, with as fiery as Detective Hermosillo's testimony was and as much evidence as he brought. Like, just think of the opposite for what Lori did. I am going to show a couple of clips. Oop, my desk is one of those that goes up and down, and I hit the button. Sorry about that. Could Lori testify to her own questions and plead the fifth to Trina's? Well, that's an interesting question. If she is going to testify, she has to submit her questions to the judge in advance. He has to approve them. Her attorneys have to ask her the questions. And then obviously Trina can object to anything that she says. And then she would have to be subject to cross-examination. And if she says anything in her testimony that references her being a good person, being a kind person, being a loving person, you already heard it. Trina K is going to bring in all of that data about her being convicted of 4 murders. Yes, by testifying, she waives her Fifth Amendment right. So she can't plead the fifth on that. Something went by just now that I wanted to see. My husband knows someone that's fixing cables at the jail. He's seen Lori there. Okay, I would love to have a third-party perspective. Do the inmates actually cheer for her when she comes back into jail every day, or is she just imagining that? I would bet it's probably the latter. I think a few ladies wouldn't mind getting arrested by Detective Hermosillo. Honestly, there was so many thirsty comments in my chat that I had to look away a little bit. I mean, I understand and I appreciate you. I get it. He's a very attractive man. However, the thing that's most attractive about him to me is the fact that he is a man of integrity. He's intelligent, and he brought it today. He went through so much in discovering the remains of the children. I can't even imagine what he's had to go through to recover from that. Thank you, Diana Storm, for the Cash App. I appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit. I want to show you a couple of clips of brilliant questions that Lori asked today. Earlier this morning, I said, maybe I'm just wrong. And Lori actually does really know what she's doing. I mean, people have criticized innovators for as long as innovation has been around. And maybe it's just possible that she has found a new way of lawyering that we just don't get. I love this quote that somebody at Fox 10 Phoenix said. Of course, I'm being sarcastic, you guys. I continue to be dazzled by the ineptitude of Lori. It really is just stunning how she's unable to reach any kind of a conclusion with her questioning. She doesn't ask any intelligent questions, and it's frankly just kind of embarrassing to watch. I have secondhand embarrassment from watching her. So let me just go to the first excellent question I thought she asked. Again, she tried to bring in evidence about this failed business deal between herself and Brandon and Melanie, their shaved ice stand called Juice Island. And it was overruled, but she continued to talk over Trina K about that. So I'm just trying to see if I can get to that little spot. And let me share my screen. I just realized that I have way too many tabs open once again. However, we will see if we can get this in. Here we go.
Interviewed her,
Yes.
and she came in voluntarily
Yes.
and talked to you.
Yes.
And did she
Honestly, she came in voluntarily, yes. And talked to you? No, she just sat there.
ask for an attorney?
No.
And about how long was that interview, do you think?
Approximately 1 hour. It was a little interrupted because their youngest was with them in the room.
By the way, if any of you watched that video of Melanie's interview, it is really difficult to decipher what's actually going on there because their youngest is there. And I'm sorry, just getting a message. Okay, I thought this was an emergency for a second, so I apologize. It was really hard to listen to because Melanie brought the baby, I kind of think on purpose. And so there was a lot of noise from the baby, and it was really hard to hear what was going on. But I think there are a couple of channels who have a better audio quality of that interview.
She didn't have childcare at that time, but I believe the interview lasted for about an hour.
Okay. And did she advise you in that interview of some business deals that Brandon was involved in?
The objection sustained, it's hearsay.
Do you hear her just talking right
Did you
over?
investigate anything that you learned during that interview?
Okay, this was my
Yes.
favorite question of the day. Did you investigate anything that you learned during that interview? No, Lori. Usually when people come in for a police interview, we just kind of let them talk. And then, we sort of let them go their own way. And, there's probably not a whole lot of relevant information in what they say. So we just like, what? And a lot of people have commented, I don't disagree with this. I think it's very possible that Lori is asking questions to figure out how she got caught. And if she were free in the future, how she could avoid being caught in the future. A couple of more really just stunning and stellar examples of how to be an attorney for the prosecution, not the defense.
I just provided.
Detective Pillar, how often or how many times would you say that you have communicated with Brandon Boudreaux in the past 5.5 years?
In the past 5.5 years, I don't know, probably 4,632 times. If you count all the text messages, the phone, and the minutes of the phone calls. Trina K, of course, objects to this.
I'm going to object to asked and answered as well as potentially 404.
As well as, and I love how Trina just goes, I would love to see the look on her face at this point. So she tries to bring in these emails that she tried to bring in on Friday about Melanie benefiting financially from the death of Brandon potentially. And it's not allowed. This objection gets sustained. She's not allowed to bring it in. So then there's an immediate sidebar. Then she tries to bring in these screenshots, which the detective says it looks like a Word document. And I can't testify that these actually came from Brandon. So I was curious, like, is she trying to manufacture evidence and bring stuff in? And then here's another just absolutely brilliant question from lawyer Lori.
Shots that he sent to you.
Okay.
So my question is, during that time, you were still gathering information, right?
Yes.
You were still looking at all possibilities of what.
I'm sorry, during that time you were still gathering information. Yes, it was an open investigation, Lori. They were still gathering information. Right after this, Trina K objects, saying, like, what time frame is she even talking about? There's no foundation at all going on here. Then she made a big deal about the Tesla glass being discarded. Well, Trina K did a great job of shooting down all of these arguments that she made. Hang on one second. So sorry, you guys. I got kid stuff going on and I'm trying to go out of town, so it's crazy. Okay, sorry about that, you guys. I just want for 1 second, I know that I'm playing a lot of Lori clips and I, sort of said I wasn't going to let her talk anymore, but I'm just trying to play like one question at a time so you don't have to listen to her actually say everything.
Fragments and a bullet hole and evidence to indicate that this happened. This shooting at Mr. Boudreaux did in fact occur.
But you didn't test it.
The fragments were not tested.
Now, Detective Pillar, how many neighbors confirmed that they heard a gunshot?
Hearing a loud bang or hearing a gunshot, approximately 4, 5.
4. Do you know who those were? Who those neighbors were?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I honestly think there's a good possibility that Lori is actually assembling a list of all of the people that she wants to have some kind of a vendetta against after this case is over. Because you notice she has asked every single time, tell me the names. Who did you talk to? All of that stuff that I think she really is just making a mental list of the people that she is going to do voodoo on or a casting on later in her cell. Because it's really not relevant. And it sounds like she just has a vendetta against all these people. Some of these questions that she asked, I really was just with my jaw on the floor. What did she just say? Really?
Answered argumentative.
That's the objection sustained.
In a sworn statement that you made, Detective, you put the other neighbors confirmed they observed a gray-colored hardtop 2-door Jeep.
So I'm going to pause right here because we're not going to listen to her continue to talk about this color of the Jeep, but she was on this all day long. Let's see. She wanted us to know that there were 4 neighbors. So there were 4 neighbors that confirmed that they heard the gunshot. And she basically asked her to define, she asked the detective to define multiple. Same number of your probations, Lori, multiple mortal probations. And some of these I have wrong because I was actually out running errands for a lot of the day, and I was watching chat on my phone and listening on my headphones and taking notes while my daughter was driving. It was a little bit hairy today, so I know some of these I have wrong, but this one I really want to go to because I thought it was really funny. She referred to the Jeep as an alleged vehicle. And I apologize that I don't have these like totally queued up, you guys. Hopefully it's not bothering you too much.
Last paragraph.
If I can know what page you're showing him.
2714.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm going to be wrong
It is
about
last
this.
paragraph, correct? Ms. Daybell?
Yes,
Okay. Let me
yes.
just review it real quick.
Just the first underlined
The first
part of-
underline, okay.
of that paragraph.
I think this was more about
Have
the,
you reviewed that, Detective?
The first underline I just did. Do you want me to check the second line as well?
I would then ask to know, I'm sorry, what section you're actually showing him that's underlined?
It's just the third paragraph.
Can you show?
it sounds like all my times are off, you guys. I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to go back and make a new video about this because I'm assuming my timestamps are correct, and it looks like they're not. They were correct at the beginning, but they're not now. I apologize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find redirect
Did you
because,
Ask Mr. Boudreaux
okay,
if
there's
he
the
owned any
sidebar.
firearms at that time on October 2nd?
I believe so.
Okay, here's the redirect. And this is the important part, guys, because all of the inane, stupid, ridiculous questions that Lori asked, Trina K did an absolutely masterful job of just bringing everybody back to the facts. And no matter what Lori says, here's what actually happened. What I love about this is that it is so incredibly snarky of Trina K without a hint of snarkiness. I think you'll see what I mean, but you can tell by the way she asks the questions and by the questions she asks that she is being really snarky towards Lori. Let's see if you can pick it up the same way that I did.
All right, Detective, I'm going to go back to some of the questions that we started with yesterday. That's kind of also come in through today. During your investigation and through testimony you heard here, did we have a witness, Robert Abitamarco, that just said the Jeep was dark colored?
Yes,
No specifics of what color that was, just dark.
correct.
And then we've heard Brandon thought that the vehicle was some sort of camo or green color.
Yes,
And then eventually, we also learned that through statements made by Brandon Boudreaux to both Officer Rob and yourself, that he believed this case was tied to an incident in Chandler. Did you learn that Lori Vallow, in fact, had a dark-colored Jeep?
yes,
And when you were able to obtain those photographs, did you learn that the Jeep was then gray?
yes,
You were asked about a probable cause statement that you wrote on November 19th of 2019. Do you recall that?
yes,
Was that after you learned about the gray vehicle, the gray Jeep that Lori Vallow had on July 11th of 2019 in Chandler, Arizona at that incident?
yes,
And in that probable cause statement, do you just in fact say that it was a dark colored or gray colored Jeep?
yes,
You don't actually say that a specific neighbor said that or where that information came from.
correct. I was working with multiple detectives.
So you're using all of the different information that you gleaned, which included the fact that this defendant owned a gray Jeep Wrangler with Texas license plates, and that was put into your statement?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you were asked a lot about the measurements of the Tesla and trajectory. Did Brandon Boudreaux
This is it right
stop
here.
at the time of the shooting and put down a little ticky-tack marker and say, better note this for later so I can tell the detectives exactly where my vehicle was when I was shot?
No, he did not.
Did Brandon Boudreaux get out of his car and go over and mark the exact end of the Jeep so that you would know exactly where that was when he was shot?
No, he did not.
Did he go over and tell the person, whoa, I gotta wait and find out exactly how this rifle barrel is sticking out of the back of your Jeep so that later on, they'll be able to document the height, the angle, if it's up, if it's down, if it's a little to the right or left, so that later on they'll be able to do some trajectory?
No,
So none of that happened.
none of that happened.
Were you surprised he didn't do that?
Not at all.
So you did receive information from another neighbor that they saw the Jeep in the approximate same location of where Brandon Boudreaux saw it,
Yes,
parked there idling, running,
yes,
same direction as Brandon gave,
yes,
the same Texas plate as Brandon gave,
yes,
and same dark tint as Brandon said.
yes.
So when you talk about this only being Brandon, that's not accurate, right?
Correct,
In fact, Abbott Tamarco said he didn't even know Brandon because he just moved in, right?
correct.
And so ultimately, when we're talking about trajectory, without knowing all of those specifics, were you aware of any way to recreate how the rifle was held, what angle it was at when it fired that shot into the Tesla, not knowing where the Tesla exactly was either?
No, unable to determine that.
So that was basically the line of questioning that I thought was the most effective throughout the entire testimony today. Trina Kay made fun of Lori for the question she was asking without really actually doing it. And then she also got the detective to restate all of the facts as they actually did happen. So after this detective was finished, that was Trina Kay's redirect. Then we had Vanessa Milgie, who is a forensics expert. She was the DNA analyzer. And I went over this a little bit in my midday recap, but the important things you need to know is that the steering wheel was conclusive for Alex's DNA, 101 quintillion to 1. By the way, that's 1 with 18 zeros. And then the gear shifter, Alex couldn't be eliminated as a subject on that one because his DNA matched very well with that. And then also on the driver's side seatbelt, Alex's DNA, 715 septillion to 1. That's a 1 with 24 zeros. So definitely Alex was driving the Jeep. He was in the Jeep. There were 2 other female DNA contributors, but there was too much mixture to that DNA for them to be positively identified. So we don't know who else that could have been. And there's no evidence, I just want to be clear, there's no evidence necessarily that either Lori or Melanie were in the Jeep. We just don't know. Lori's DNA was not found. Nobody else could be conclusively identified in the Jeep. They just said that there were 2 other female contributors to that mix of DNA. Then Kyle Mueller got on the stand. He's a forensic scientist specializing in gunshot residue. He explained to us what that is, how it's found, and yes, he confirmed there are 3 elements to gunshot residue. Lori wanted to really make sure that we knew that she knew what those 3 elements were. However, his overall conclusion after testing all the gunshot residue that was collected from the Jeep is that the vehicle was in the vicinity of where a firearm was discharged. There were particles that were found on the passenger inside back window. So the back window of the Jeep on the passenger side, on the inside, gunshot residue particles were found, as well as the driver's side interior window. Evidence consistent with gunshot residue. Now on cross, Lori, of course, repeats all of these questions, things he's already testified to, and then she goes on this weird tangent of the other things that contain those elements. She must have gotten on a Google search one day. Non-firearm sources of those 3 elements: lead, gas, paint, fireworks, hairspray, cosmetics. And then I thought she asked an actual good question. And let me see if I can find it here, because I think it's one of the only ones that we've ever seen. Hopefully my timestamps are correct on these. Realize I have to share.
Particles are actually there. I'm essentially getting a sample of that area. So the number is not really pertinent to my analysis.
Okay, that's him answering the
So-
question. So let me go back
Is
just
it
a
safe to
little
say
bit.
that whoever was the person who,
On the driver's side and one on the passenger side on the inside windows.
so just two? And
So
if a
he's
firearm were to
basically,
be,
I'm sorry, he's basically saying, Lori is asking him, I think the question was, would you expect to find more than 2 particles of gunshot residue? Because what he says is he counts the particles. If there are less than 10, he notes the number of particles. If there are more than 10, he just considers it to be a lot of particles. Well, there were only 2 particles found on one of these windows. And Lori's question is, wouldn't you expect to find more particles than 2 if a gun had been fired? It's an actual decent question.
shot in the back of the Jeep, would you expect to find more than 2 from all the stubs that you analyzed?
It's difficult to determine how many particles are actually there. I'm essentially getting a sample of that area. So the number is not really pertinent to my analysis.
So is it safe to say that whoever was the person who got the stubs would be deciding what you would end up analyzing later? You wouldn't have any control over that, right?
Correct. I didn't collect the stubs.
Yeah. So then she, goes off onto her question that nobody can understand. Now, the great thing is that Trina K clarified on her redirect that you would not get the characteristics of gunshot residue and the combination of those 3 particles from anything else. And so the number of particles doesn't really matter. What matters is the fact that you found particles in the Jeep is consistent with the fact that there was a gun fired in or around the Jeep. And because all the particles were on the inside of the Jeep, we can assume it was fired from inside the Jeep. Now, finally, Detective Ray Hermosillo, bringing all of the evidence that I believe is going to put away Lori for good. Now, you have to remember, this detective is the one that was deemed dark by Chad Daybell. This is the one that Melanie asked, can we get him to stop? Because they knew this guy was onto them and he was going to find out everything. There was a lot about 175 Pioneer Road, which is where Lori and Alex and Melanie all rented apartments at the same complex. In fact, Alex and Melanie right next door to each other. He said that he went to that address because they were looking for a Jeep, and he went with another detective at that point. One of the things I noticed during one of these little clips is the way that Trina K handles documents with Lori. So when you're in the courtroom and Trina K is about to show a document to a witness, she has to show it to the defense first, and the defense has to kind of confirm this is the exhibit that they're referencing, so in case they have any objections. And what Trina K would do when I was there for Charles's trial is that she would hand the document to Lori's table without looking at Lori. She almost never made eye contact with Lori. She would hand the document like this, not look at Lori, and then look away until Lori was done reviewing it. And then she would pick up the document without looking at Lori. And I love that. It's just a great way to show someone that they don't matter to you at all. So this document just was the search warrant. They were providing they were provided with the names of Lori Vallow and Alex Cox when they were looking for this Jeep. And they saw Lori going in and out of apartment number 175, and the vehicle, the Jeep, was parked near 175. They showed some photos of Lori coming in and out of the garage of 175, and her Nissan Rogue parked inside the garage of 175. This was really important evidence. They impounded that Jeep on November 4th. And they tried many times. They made several attempts to try to contact Lori and Alex regarding the fact that they had impounded this Jeep, and they were never able to get in touch with them. And not only that, but Lori and Alex never reported it missing or stolen or anything. So when the police came and picked it up, they just kind of knew. They're like, oh, well, I guess we just have to, like, if they reported it stolen, then they were going to get involved with the police and everything. So I thought that was really important. Then he was present for the execution of the search warrant on the Jeep. He was there when all of that evidence was collected. He was supervising that situation, and he noted that there was extremely dark tint that would not have been legal in Idaho. Then they took, sorry, my dogs. Then they took some of the receipts that were found inside the Jeep, and this is just brilliant stupidity, if I can even call it that. The receipts that they found in the Jeep were from Alex, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up. I hope that I have the right timestamp for this. This receipt is from the Los Favoritos restaurant on Power Road in Mesa, Arizona. The date is October 1st. The time is 1:12 p.m. It's hard to see. And if you noticed, he ordered a potato burrito. And at this point I asked, what? Was Chad there? I'm going to refer to him as the potato burrito from now on. So what this does, though, is it places Alex in Mesa, Arizona on October 1st, eating lunch. Then on 11/26, they contacted, oh, I'm so sorry. Was I not even showing that to you guys? Did you see it or no? Just in case. I don't think I was sharing it with you guys. There's the receipt in case you wanted to see it. I apologize, you guys. Sometimes I forget whether I'm sharing the screen or not. Sorry about that. So then on 11/26, Detective Hermosillo made contact with Chad. He was with Alex Cox. They were in the Ford F-150 with the Arizona plate that said CP Quint. And for those of you who missed it, I believe, personally, it's my opinion, that is a reference to Captain Quint from Jaws, because Alex always loved to quote the little monologue that Captain Quint does when they're on the boat. And he does a little toast that said, "Here's to swimming with bow-legged women." Alex would love to say that. So at this time, he knew that Alex was living at Rock Creek Apartments. He knew that Chad and Lori were married, but both Alex and Chad kind of pretended like they didn't really know Lori that well. They didn't bring that evidence in this time, but I just remember that from the last time. So here is, I want to show you the townhomes. And this was a little bit of a disturbing discovery for me this afternoon. This is something that I've had wrong this entire time, and I don't know how I missed it. The numbers of the apartments
Pioneer Road.
and what was found where.
Is this the Rock Creek townhomes?
Yes, it is.
Using Exhibit 135, are you able to tell us approximately where Unit 175 is located?
Is there a pointer I can use or?
Could he point to the TV behind you? If you could get up and, thank you. So if you could point to, yeah.
175, the back of 175 is roughly here, and the front door is this way. So the garage where I first made contact with Alex and Chad both, we're right back here.
Detective, maybe if you could go to this side. Sorry, just the other side so the jury doesn't have to look through you. Thank you.
The Jeep was located on November 4th, parked in a stall right here.
So that's where you located it on the 4th. And that's right near the 175 you're describing?
Correct, right in front of the 175 garage.
Now, you told us that you also knew that at that time Alex Cox was living at the Rock Creek townhomes. Can you show us where that was, what unit that was, approximately?
107 is where Alex Cox was living, and it was roughly here, the front door to 107.
During this time on November 26th, did you learn that Melanie Boudreaux was also living at the Rock Creek Townhomes?
Yes, I did.
What unit did she live in?
She lived in 174, which is right next door to Ms. Vallow's residence.
Thank you. You can be seated now.
Okay, now this is something that I didn't, shoot, was I not showing it again? I'm sorry, you guys. It's been such a long day. I apologize. Here it is. And I'll back it up just a little bit. Well, actually, I don't even need to back it up because I can show you. This is 175. The back of it is right here. The front door is here. The Jeep was located in this parking area over here. And 107 is over here. Now, I've been to these townhomes, and I had it wrong in my mind this entire time. I thought that, so I know that Lori's name was on the lease of 107, and Alex's name was on the lease of 175. I knew that Alex and Melanie lived right next door to each other, with Melanie in 174. I always made the assumption, this is 175, the back of 175, here's the front. 107 is way over here. I always made the assumption that Lori lived in the unit that she had her name on the lease, and she didn't. Because what Detective Hermosillo clarified to us today is that when they executed the search warrant on 107, it was almost completely empty. There was no food in the fridge. There was no food in the pantry. There was no clothing anywhere. There was no furniture anywhere. It was almost completely empty. What he said, that 175 had food in the fridge and the pantry. 175 had furniture. 175 had evidence that there was clothing, that there were people living there. And he also confirmed that he never saw Lori go in and out of unit 107. He only saw Lori go in and out of unit 175. First of all, this confirms to me something that's pretty gross. Lori and Alex were living in the same townhome together. Number one, I assumed that Lori was living in one townhome with the kids and that Alex was living in another townhome by himself. But this confirms that they were living in the same townhome. Not that they were sharing a room or any of that kind of stuff, but just that I thought that Lori and the kids had their own space. And when I looked at the timeline of everything that happened and the phone pings of what happened the last night JJ was seen and the last night that Tylee was seen, I had it all mixed up and confused. So now I have to go back and look at that again. Lori signed the lease on 107 back on the 14th of August. If you remember, Charles Vallow was killed on July 11th. The landlord asked her to vacate the home by August 30th. And so she had already signed the lease on this unit on the 14th. And then she moved on the 30th of August. And then on the 27th of November, when the search warrant was executed, they were gone. So that was the amount of time that they spent in those homes. That was the thing that was so mind-blowing to me. Now I'm going to have to go back over the timeline and rethink everything that I think that happened with the kids. The really damning evidence, the most important evidence from this part is that the Jeep was parked at 175, and that's where they always saw Lori coming in and out of. Don't worry, I'm going to go back over those pings again. But again, they made contact with Alex and Chad. They did a welfare check on the 26th of November. Lori said, "Oh, JJ's with my friend in Arizona." And the next day they went to execute his search warrants and everyone was gone. Just going back to look at this comment that you guys suggested that I look at, but I can't find it. Can you make it again? I'm sorry, Northwest. Alex slept at 107. According to Alex's phone, his phone went home to 107 every night. Okay, well, that's good. Interesting, important, but I still want to look at what happened on September 9th and on September 22nd, 23rd. Because I think I was confused about what happened, and I think I came to a conclusion that probably might be incorrect. And Melanie, this is the other thing. When Melanie Gibb and her boyfriend, husband, whatever, David, what's his name, I always assumed that they were at Lori's apartment in 107, but they weren't. They were in 175. That was where they did the podcast on the 22nd, and Alex brought JJ back into the house at the end of the podcast, supposedly asleep on his shoulder. So I think I had the wrong idea about where things took place, and I just want to review it. So that's all I'm going to say. Here's the really important stuff, you guys, and I want to get to this. 175, when they executed the search warrant, there was food, there was furniture, it was lived in. The closets, though, were empty, but there were no hangers, just like somebody had taken the hangers and the clothes out of the closet and just took off. The thing is, the garage was not that cluttered. There were some belongings in there. There was some food storage. There were cars. There were some bins with Alex's things in them. But they didn't need a storage unit and a garage. And so a lot of people have said, well, that was stupid. Why did they rent a storage unit? Well, guys, think about what was found in the storage unit. It was a lot of paraphernalia that had pictures of JJ and Tylee, their clothes, their bikes, toys, and they used it to store the tire and the back seat of the Jeep. They wanted to be as far away from those things as possible. So even though there was room in the garage, they wanted all of that stuff to be completely separate from them. I personally think that the reason Lori stored the tire and the back seat in the storage unit was in case something happened to Alex. You know, last time he tried to attack Joe Ryan, he tased Joe Ryan and ended up getting arrested. So if Alex ends up getting arrested during this shooting attempt, Lori didn't want the back seat of the Jeep and the tire to be in her garage. She wanted it to be away from her in a storage unit that she rented under the name Lori Ryan, by the way, supposedly so that she couldn't have that tied back to her. The rental agreement was in the name of Lori Ryan. So the garage at 175 had women's clothes. The contents were food storage, Alex Cox's passport, some bills, some weapons, ironically, a tax return or two. The Rogue, the Jeep, and the truck were all near 175, nowhere near 107. They showed some garage pictures, and I'm going to see if I can get to the right spot of the video here. Learn my lesson, sharing the screen before I go there. Lori objects to the relevance of these pictures. I wonder if I have the wrong timestamp over here. Those are pictures of the Jeep. Again, all of these pictures of the Jeep, to me, look like they're different colors. There's one. That one looks gray. That one kind of looks blue. I mean, none of them look puke green, to be fair. Let's see. I think this should be 445, maybe. That's the lease agreement for the storage unit saying Lori Ryan. That was an important moment. There are the townhomes. I want to see if they show any more pictures of townhomes.
136 through 138 are admitted.
Okay. So 137, do we see the front of units 175?
This is where the ring
Let me pull out.
camera footage came
That's
from.
175. It's the one with the toys out front.
Where would 174 be in relation to this?
To the left of that apartment.
So
Yep,
this
right
one.
over there.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so 174 would have been
this-
over here.
Apartment was technically rented to Alex Cox, but inside it had some indicia of Lori Vallow.
That's correct.
And I'm putting up 138.
Okay, so this was
So
another
when we
really
see this,
important
we see at
moment.
the top, you said C52. Is that,
They found a lot
Yes.
of
and then
guns
furniture in there?
in the
You
garage.
told us that you were looking for any types of weapons. So I have exhibit 145.
And I'm just going to turn off, I'm going to turn off the commentary because all you need to see is that there were a lot of guns found in the garage of 175, some of which had threaded barrels, which would accommodate a suppressor. Now, a lot of people, if you're not from the United States, you're going to think this is a crazy amount of guns. Well, if you're a hunting enthusiast, this isn't necessarily a large amount of guns. As far as I know, I don't think they have the exact gun that did the shooting because they didn't mention that here. Then they showed the all-important video from the storage rental place. And here we see Lori's Nissan Rogue pulling in to the storage rental. This is October 1st, the day before the shooting. This is Lori's vehicle pulling into the rental facility. And it says 14:08, the timestamp there, but it was an hour off. So this would have been somewhere around 1 p.m. Then it takes us kind of a long time to get to this point, but they show exterior video of Lori and Chad bringing the tire in. That was them getting back in the car and driving away. And then here is the interior video where we see Lori walking in by herself. And Trina asks Detective Hermosillo, do you recognize that person? He says, absolutely. That's Lori Vallow. So she comes in to the storage unit by herself. And she's just bringing in paraphernalia, bins, and things like that. Then the next thing that they show is Lori's vehicle pulling away on the same day. Then they show her vehicle arriving the next day. And this time she's with Chad, I believe. And here is the moment where we see Chad outside the storage unit, and they together get out the back seat of the Jeep and they bring it in and put it in the storage unit. This was so triggering for me when I first saw it. I thought for sure we were going to find something horrible in that storage unit. And I had a hard time being around storage units after that. So that's definitely Chad and Lori. And then after we take a little break, in which my mind was blown and I had to do a little bit of venting, we come back and we see Lori returning to the storage unit on the 3rd of October. This time, she's with Alex Cox. And they showed the entirety of this video. Here comes Alex. You can see his gait is very different. And he carries out the tire by himself. Most of you have seen this video footage before, but they spent a lot of time going over this video footage, making sure that we understood exactly what was happening, all of the different camera angles. Most of you have only seen the interior angles, but these are the exterior angles showing Lori and Alex getting in their car and leaving after dropping that off. Now, if I'm on the jury, this is pretty damning that Alex and Lori are together. Like at this point, we have seen pretty much incontrovertible evidence that Alex is the one who did the shooting. And we've also seen evidence that the Jeep was registered to Lori. And then we see Lori coming into the storage unit and putting that backseat in there. Then we see her taking it back out with Alex. So to me, this is the nail in the coffin. But if that weren't good enough, we actually have now the receipt that Alex bought the burner phone at a Walmart in Idaho Falls. Now, there's a Walmart in Rexburg, but he decided to travel all the way to Idaho Falls to distance himself, I guess. I don't know. And here's what is really hilarious to me. Let me share this with you real quick. I think I just passed it by over here. There's the receipt right there. And so we have a phone card that was activated, a mobile phone that was purchased for $59. It had this serial number, and then it was purchased with cash. But because Alex kept the receipt, we have evidence of this purchase on September 25th of 2019. And we already heard evidence that that phone was activated the next day, and it was used until October 2nd, which was the day after the shoot, or the day of the shooting, and then it was never used again. We also have the evidence that the only phone number that that phone called or received was Chad Daybell. Here's another interesting thing. They found this device in the garage, and it was still logged in to the Homer J. Maximus Gmail account. So that's the rest of the data that I want to tell you about today, and we're almost done. On that Homer J. Maximus Gmail account, there was evidence of Alex Cox's searches and Alex Cox's map data as well. So we know that that phone looked up Brandon Boudreaux's address in the evening of October 1st and on the morning of October 2nd. We know that he searched for a route back to Idaho Falls that avoided major roads. And I'm not going to go through all those stops. Normally I would, but my brain is fried right now. But just suffice it to say, he did not take the most direct route back to Idaho Falls. On September 27th, Alex Googled minute of angle. On the 28th, he Googled ammunition and ballistic calculators. On the 23rd, he Googled places to shoot and variations of that, places to shoot in Rexburg. Then he visited those websites. He also searched the auto tint place on that same day, the 23rd, incidentally, the same day that he left JJ's remains with Chad Daybell. He also searched how to load a rifle yourself. On the 24th, he searched best long-range projectile. He searched 300 Winchester magazine, how to load. The 28th, he searched 5.56 millimeter shot at 500 yards. He Googled bullet drop at 500 yards. On the 27th, he Googled ballistic and trajectory calculations. The same day that he was visiting a gun club where he signed in as C. Quint, just one letter off from his license plate. So just take that in for a second. September 27th, he was Googling all of this about ballistics and trajectory, and he also visited a gun club to practice shooting and signed in as C. Quint. On October 2nd, he searches man shot. There were a couple of searches like that. On October 2nd, he searched news on Brandon Boudreaux. That was around 8 to 9 p.m. And then his map searches turned out Dan's window tint, as well as the map to the restaurant, the Favoritos, that we just had the potato burrito receipt from. On October 1st, around 7:52 p.m., he Googled Brandon Boudreaux's address, and again at 7:11 a.m. on October 2nd. And then various addresses after the shooting, leaving Arizona on the way back to Idaho Falls. Then we brought in some evidence about the Lolly Time email. And for those of you who don't remember, Lolly was the nickname of Lori's sister who died in infancy. Laura Lee Cox died after just 6 weeks of a congenital heart defect. Lori was born about a year and 4 months later. And I've always found it strange that it was Laura Lee and then Lori Noreen. Another interesting, weird thing, and maybe someone can help me out with this, all of the middle names of the Cox kids started with L until we got to Lori. We had Stacy Lynn, Alex Lamar, Adam Lane, Laura Lee, and then Lori Noreen. And Summer, I actually don't remember her middle name. Weird. Is it a weird coincidence? Am I reading too much into it? I don't know. From Lori's Lolly Time iCloud account, the following searches. August 15th of 2019 is when she started searching for things in Rexburg, restaurants, amenities, gyms, things like that. On September 30th at 5:18 p.m., just 2 days before the shooting, how to get the back seat out of my Jeep Wrangler. If that's not damning evidence, I really don't know what is. Tying her to the conspiracy. Then on October 2nd at 8:13 p.m., she was searching Gilbert, Arizona news. She went to several news websites and she searched for breaking news. She searched for headlines and she visited news websites. Then on October 3rd at 1:15 p.m. is when we saw Alex Cox and Lori Vallow at the storage unit removing the seat and the tire that was on the map data of Lori's iCloud account. And that is where Trina K ended her questioning of Detective Ray Hermosillo. God bless you, Ray. My heart is with you. I'm so grateful for you. Then you might be surprised to learn, or maybe you won't, that Lori had no questions for this witness. In my opinion, I think Lori is scared of Detective Ray Hermosillo. I think that she is terrified of cross-examining him. She's no match for his intelligence, his strength, or his ability to see right through Lori's complete bullshit. So she didn't ask him any questions. Now, the interesting thing is that Trina K says that tomorrow we're going to hear from Detective Nick Balance. He is the cast data expert for the FBI, and he's the one that's going to show us all of the cell phone pings of where everyone was at the time before, during, and after this crime allegedly was committed. And he's going to be her final witness. So tomorrow, we are going to find out if Lori is going to finally defend herself in any way, if she's going to call any witnesses. The judge told her that they need to be there by 10:15 tomorrow morning. If she's going to testify, she has to have submitted all those questions in advance, and I don't know if she's done it. Personally, I think her refusal to cross-examine Detective Hermosillo was her signal to the jury that she doesn't believe that they've made their burden. She didn't question any of the evidence that Detective Hermosillo went over today. So I personally don't think she's going to call any witnesses. I don't think she's going to testify. I think she's going to rest. And I think tomorrow we're going to see, prior to the jury brought in, I think they're going to go over the jury instructions. And then I think we're going to see closing statements tomorrow. I will be there. My plane lands sometime around 9:30 Phoenix time. So I will be able to be there pretty much when court starts. Now, I won't be in the chat for the live stream, but the live stream will be going. I will continue to stream the trial coverage. I will still do my midday recap. And if we even get that far, I'll do an afternoon recap, because I suspect what's going to happen is we'll go over jury instructions. They'll bring the jury in. The state's going to rest. The defense is going to rest. I think we'll have closing statements tomorrow. And then I think the jury is going to go out to deliberate. I honestly think that we could have a verdict by Thursday. I'm really grateful that I'm going to be there. I'll be excited to see Kay. I hope Detective Hermosillo is still there. I have a couple of particular questions I want to ask him, and we'll see who else I run into there at court. Of course, I'll see Brandon and his wife, Jenny. I loved meeting them during Charles's trial, and I'm looking forward to being, for the first time, around family members who I actually love and care about for the verdict being read. I'm very excited to be in Arizona for this verdict. It is the end of a very long saga, and I'm very excited to close this chapter, and I can't wait for the sentencing when I can finally close the book for good. I appreciate so much you beautiful humans being here. I appreciate your support, your kindness, and all of your words. Thank you so much to my moderators who have taken all the heavy lifting off of my plate today. And I will see you very soon. I think probably my lunch recap will be the next time that you'll see me live. And I'm very excited to bring an end to this chapter. So thank you again for everything you've done for my channel. Thanks for supporting me through this. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue reporting on narcissism, true crime, high demand religion, and how to have healthier and happier relationships. I will see you very soon. Please take care of yourself.
Are you done? Are you just going to keep